This morning at 8 a.m., Elijah Hickson at the Evangelical Textual Criticism blog announced James Snapp discovers 2 more folios of 064. Now, when I first looked at this, there's a picture from up on the hill of St. Catherine's Monastery. And so I'm like, wow, James Snapp is how would anyone travel there right now is the main thing I'm wondering. How do you even during the days of COVID-19? But once you start reading it, what this is sort of like Jason Lyle discovered a planet, and he did. But you know how he did it? Staring at a computer screen. Well, how do you do that? Well, there's all these databases made available publicly that you can sift through. And of course, Jason writes computer programs and stuff. And so what you do is you find planets by looking at stars. And when the star has a regular diminishment in its brightness, in its luminosity, that's considered normally to be due to a planet passing between us and that star. So obviously that particular solar system has to be pretty much flat on to us for us to be able to see this type of thing. But we found many, many, many what are called exoplanets, planets outside of the solar system. By being able to chart the stars and see when they have regular pulsations that fit into the parameters of what having a planet sort of dim it for a second or briefly as it passes in front of the star between us and the star. So that's what he was doing. Can tell he's a whole lot of fun to be around on a Friday doing that. Same thing with James Snapp, because what's James Snapp doing? He's looking through manuscripts, the visual manuscript room out of Munster, and he noticed that 064 in the VMR has gaps between Matthew 26:70 and 27:13, and between Matthew 27:30 and 27:44. So it's only like 14 verses. That's like a page or something like that. And not sure how he did this, whether he was making a catalog and saw the same material someplace else. Don't know. I didn't read all the stuff, but realized that he didn't discover anything. What you can do, said, hey, look at that. And hey, look at that. You put them together. Hey, there it is. This is happening a lot. CSNTM has helped a lot with doing so. CSNTM is the Center for the Study of New Testament Manuscripts. As they're going around photographing manuscripts, they'll all of a sudden sort of notice, these pages look different than other pages. And then you start doing some digging around. And what we thought was one manuscript is actually 2 manuscripts, where a later manuscript has been inserted into another manuscript. And that's one of the reasons why the number of New Testament manuscripts keeps changing, is because you might find out, well, we thought we had 1 manuscript here, it's actually 2. So that would increase the number of manuscripts. Or you go, hey, wait a minute, the manuscript that contains these books in this library, at this museum, that looks identical to this manuscript over here that happens to contain the different books. Oh, it's the same manuscript. It's been broken up into two parts. And so now the number goes down, because what you thought was 2 manuscripts is actually 1 manuscript. And then that's why you have to have places like Munster. Then you've got to submit all that stuff. And we've assigned this number to this one and this number to this one, but actually they're the same manuscript. Now, what do you do about that? Because what if someone wrote a paper on this manuscript over here that you now find as a part of this one, and you reassign its number over this one? Now no one's going to know which one that is, especially if you give that number to somebody else. So this cataloging thing is very complicated, and it's very modern. Because remember, we've told the story before. Down there in the 1550 Stephanus, you have the story of what took place with Beza, where Stephanus had what we call Codex Bezae Cantabrigiensis, Codex D. He had access to it. A lot of people didn't know that for a long time. And then it was eventually given to Beza, And so Beza has the 1550 Stephanos, which has references to the letter beta, which is Stephanos's beta manuscript, which is Beze. But Beza didn't know it was Beze. And so he thinks now he has two manuscripts reading the same way, but it's actually the same manuscript. He just didn't realize it because there could not be, it would be impossible to have a centralized cataloging mechanism to be able to tell which manuscripts are which. And so it's only been in modern times where you can have, well, initially it was microfilm. A lot of these manuscripts were microfilmed many, many years ago. And if you've ever worked with microfilm, remember the mimeograph machine? Oh yeah, that was about same level of technology. Yeah. So modern times, great. It's awesome to be able to do this type of stuff. Congratulations to James Snapp. But see, when I first read this, I'm trying to figure James Snapp with that massive Church of Christ hitchhiking through the desert to get to St. Catherine's Monastery, when actually he was sitting in his office staring at large print screen and tracked this thing down. And that's good job, James. Well done. But I can guarantee you one thing. I can guarantee you that James Snapp would rather have gone to St. Catherine's. Because you're probably aware of the fact that the Indiana Jones character is rumored to have been, anyways, I don't know if it was proven to have been based off of Count von Tischendorf, who did go to St. Catherine's. And in those days, to get into St. Catherine's, you had to ride up in a wicker basket up over the walls. So, I mean, that's called a lift. And so I have a feeling that James Snapp would love to go to St. Catherine's if the opportunity were afforded to him. But that's not how he did this one. Did it online. That's good detective work. And that was just posted this morning, so I thought I'd mention that. Elijah Hickson mentioned that this morning, and I think that's pretty cool.